Hi, my name is Kris Stevens, and I am part of the CoLiving Canada team. Really excited to be here doing our first video and talking with my colleague Duncan about what we've been up to and some other interesting things that have been going on. We're hoping to provide you a weekly update on co-housing, co-living, as well as other strategies and tools that you can use to age successfully as well as live successfully. So Duncan, I think you're going to do the interview, and then from there I'll do my best to answer the questions and provide some deep insight into some of the things that we're up to.
Okay, thanks, Kris. And yes, it's welcome to everyone here. Yeah, the purpose here is to give you an idea of what we're doing here at CoLiving Canada. And Kris was telling me the other day about a very interesting guest that he had from Denmark, and I've asked him to just share a little bit of that perspective because this is of great interest to us. So Kris, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the guest that you had. Maybe tell us a little bit about himself as a person, because he's quite a notable individual, and then a little bit about sharing about what's happening in Denmark with regard to how people are living.
You bet. You bet. So, and just for those of you that perhaps aren't familiar with CoLiving Canada, I'll give you a little bit of insight about who and what we are as well. So, CoLiving Canada is a new business, new organization that's been started up to help people live better together. That's our tagline. So, the idea being that we want to help provide the tools, skills, information necessary to help people live a better quality of life, and a key part of that strategy is co-living and co-housing. So my colleague that was just visiting, his name is Soren Hermansson. Soren is from a little tiny island called Samso, and he and I met when I was still working in the sustainable energy sector in Japan. And he was there, as was I, talking about opportunities and solutions for communities to come together and make things happen, to transform their communities through doing projects. So I still do a little bit of work in that sector, but right now when he was visiting, I really wanted to talk to him about the idea of co-housing, which originated in Denmark. And I wanted to know, is there any co-housing happening on his island, and how does that fit into people's lifestyle as well as into sort of fabric of society? Soren is an interesting guy, really sort of salt of the earth, and has been deeply involved in creating master plans for his community, inspiring, getting things going, but also working on policy as well as the grassroots sort of stuff. He's won a environmental peace prize, Nobel Peace Prize. He was one of Time's top people, Time magazine, but he also does some really great work around the world helping get things going. And he was here in Toronto helping a number of people that are doing buildings do some strategy around how to become more sustainable and how to make things happen in communities across Canada. So we had a really interesting conversation about co-housing. And the first thing he said I found super interesting was that it's just normal, that people actually prefer living in co-housing, that it's not something new or a big sort of change from the norm, but in fact, the sort of suburban lifestyle that we're so familiar with here in North America, it's become the undesired state, and co-housing has become the norm, that both younger families don't want to go move into the burbs. They want to live in villages or in the city, and that in doing so, they recognize that there's value of being by other people that want to be together, look after each other's kids, and that seniors also don't even think about staying home alone or moving into an institution, but in fact, they look to move into a co-housing project if they're not already in one. But they may not want to be in an intergenerational co-housing situation. They'd rather, in some instances, just be with other people their age, where they can co-care and provide support and services to each other, look after each other, and really get more than just their money's worth, but get their, community's worth of living with other people like them who are facing some of the same challenges.
Okay, that's great. And I think you were mentioning too that he was saying that the the co-housing takes quite a few different forms or shapes, that there's not just one particular way of ownership and so on as well?
Yeah, that's right. So I think the commonality of all the different projects is that they're community-led. So it's the people that are going to be living there that help shape and design what it's going to look like. And that intentionality then creates more shared spaces. Sometimes you don't need as much private space, but there is both shared space and private space. So, you don't have to hang out with everybody all the time. It's actually, really like having your own apartment or your own house, but then being able to walk out your door or look out your window and see your neighbors, connect with them, and look after each other. So if you need to share services, then you can do that. If you need to hire people in, you can do that, but you can also look after each other. And then the other piece is proximity. So being close to the things that are most important. So grocery shopping, being able to do your laundry, going cycling if you're into that sort of thing, or playing sports, but also being close to the family and friends that you really want to be connected with. Ideally, you want to be within 10 minutes of that stuff. And if it's further than that, it's either unlikely to happen or it's going to be stressful and create more difficulties. So those commonalities take different forms through either private ownership, so freehold, or through a sort of condominium structure, or even co-ops sometimes. But there's also not-for-profits and even publicly owned buildings that are state-run, but that are in essence still co-housing because of the way that they've been designed and that they're running afterwards.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's quite fascinating, because as we know, there's been, rather than that being the norm here, it's the exception, where we're looking at alternative ways of being and living together and so on. And so you might, could we maybe bridge for a little bit in terms of what you're doing there locally, as far as some of the things that you've been doing for people that are interested in looking into this further, or for their own purposes?
Yeah, of course. So CoLiving Canada is really about not just building buildings, but actually building a community first, and really recognizing that the people are the picture and that the buildings are going to be the frame. And you don't want to go buy the frame before you actually know what that picture is going to be. So what we're trying to do is start out by doing a 10-part workshop series that's going to start towards the end of February on the 21st. It's going to run for 10 weeks into April. And every week we will get together at St. Matthew's Church up on St. Clair at 6:30 at night for a couple of hours. And between sessions, we'll provide tools, readings. We've got a course guidebook that we were trained using with some experts from down in the States. And we'll really get into a deep dialogue that will help provide the foundation to hopefully spur some people to move into and develop a co-housing or co-living situation. Now, for those that decide not to, it's not that they're going to waste their time. The idea here is really to learn how to age successfully, to get past some of the denial that some people have, or a lot of us have, that we're getting older, and to arm us with the decision-making tools and the information to make the informed decision around, do I stay home alone? Do I move into an institution? Or do I do something different that maybe is just at the cutting edge here in Ontario and is becoming increasingly the norm on the west coast of Canada and the United States, which is co-housing and co-living.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kris, for this. We'll post on the video ways in which people can get in touch for those who want to follow up. And we'll do some additional videos taking a look at some of the specific projects that already have been undertaken in North America, so people can get a better feel for it, and taking a look at some of the deeper issues that are triggering a major response to this, in terms of the recent announcements in terms of the impact of loneliness on health, and the whole just quite a few issues there that people have, whether it's financial, whether it's health, regardless of what their situation is. So we'll be doing some additional videos. So maybe we'll wrap it up for now on this one. And is there anything further before we conclude?
Sure. I'll just put this out there. Two things. So one is the workshop that we're going to be delivering is focused on seniors, but there's a lot of information that's just as relevant to those that are in intergenerational situations. So, I've got a young family, a 2.5-year-old, and my partner and we've talked about wanting to live in co-housing, and going through that training and those some of those questions. You may not think that you're in the right dynamic, that you've got to wait until you're getting older, but the reality is the sooner you do this, the sooner you get engaged in the dialogue and start taking that intentionality or building a plan, the sooner you're going to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success and for happiness. So whether you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s, we're hoping that you're going to join us and participate. It's going to be a lot of fun, but also really powerful and impactful on your life. And if you want more information, you can check out the links below, as Duncan said, but also visit us at www.colivingcanada.com. And look forward to chatting more. Thanks, Duncan.
Okay, thanks so much, Kris.